Hello, and welcome to a new video. Today, guys, we will be making both meta-analysis and top teams for the Great League. This is my first video of the season concerning the top teams. I don't like the idea of making top teams before the actual Great League meta start. I can do that for limited cups because they are easier to predict. Great League, however, is different. It's even different to make meta-analysis for Great League and very tough, so I did my best here. Now, before we continue, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, liking the video, sharing it if you like it, and consider checking my playlist. It's called How to Climb, in case you are planning on getting better in JBL. Now, back to the video. I'm sorry, by the way, if my voice isn't totally good. I'm having, I don't know the English word for it, but I'm having trouble in my throat, and it's, I don't know the word, but yeah, it's not good. Okay, so on your screen right now, you are seeing basically the most influential Pokemons in the Great League meta. Now, give or take, basically the importance of each one. Like, for example, Golbat, although it's good, it's a strong Pokemon, you don't see it much often. For example, Lantern, you see it a lot. Bastiodon, you see it a lot. Registeel, sadly, not as much as Bastiodon. I prefer seeing Reggie over Bastiodon, despite them both being considered toxic in a way, but not really. Registeel is very hard to play, actually. We see a lot of familiar faces like Cresselia. Cresselia, by the way, after the last the tour one that added the level 15 Cresselia, I believe everyone should have one. Cresselia is very good. Like, if you search on PvPoke, you go to the ranking section, you'll find that Cresselia is basically the top Pokemon at the moment. Now, I guess this is enough of an intro. Let's go into the actual meta-analysis. It's gonna be very tough to make. So yeah, let's dive. Alright, now the meta-analysis. Look, when we have a very limited meta, it's easy to make an analysis over it, because basically it's more of an RPS cup in most cases. Like the last one, for example, it only featured 3 types. So it's easier to make a video on it. But not only that, it's not just the types, it's the role each one plays. For example, if you are seeing on the screen right now, the top left of the screen, you'll see the water types. Lantern, Wishcash, Toxapex, we have Poly, we have Mantine, we have Pelipper, we have Azu, Dugong, Jelly, and Feraligatr. Now, each one of these plays a different role. Like, I could easily, for example, take Pelipper and Mantine and put them on the other end, the top right, where we have the section of Gligar, Talonflame, Skarmory, and Mandibuzz, being the flying section. I can take Poliwrath and put it with the top middle of the screen, with both Vigoroth, Annihilate, Gallade, and Deoxys as the fighting section. So you get the point of this. They play different roles. Some counter one another. For example, Lantern does counter, let's say, Jellicent. Lantern counters Jellicent. Now, Jellicent, on the other hand, counters Whiscash. Now, Whiscash counters Lantern. So, they can, like, a water type cup can make somewhat of a fun meta. It's gonna be RPS as fuck, of course, but, you know, it can be fun. This is fun. Anyway, in the bottom left of the screen, we are seeing the grass. Okay, Cresselia technically is not the grass, but it has grass knot. We have, of course, it's basically the anti-fighting grass types in a way, because none of these is really grass in the sense, but they all, either 3 of them resist counter, one actually double resist counter, and one has aerial ace, which is superior. So it's not really a grass meta or a grass section, but they play the role of countering the water types. Same with the dragons. Now the dragons on paper counter water, although in real life, Azu for example, destroys most of these. The flying ones like Pelipper for example, they counter the fighting dragon. And on the other hand, for example, as a dragon, Giratina does well against Jelly, does well against Azu, actually does well against a lot of them, so it differs. Ice types for example like Dugong do counter them as well, so yeah, all in all it's a different kind of, but a general idea. We have in the middle we have 3 Pokemons, Wigglytuff, Sableye and Skelly. Now these don't really belong to one area, but they do well against most of the other areas. Even the ones that counter them, for example, Skelly for example has Disarming Voice. Now Disarming Voice hits dragons for super effective damage and double super effective damage for both Gazlord as well as Hakamu, because one has dark subtyping and one has fighting subtyping. So both types, the dragon as well as fighting and dark, they all take super effective damage from fairy type moves, making it a great Pokemon. It does play well against the fighting section. It does play well against the flying section. It does play somewhat well against, well, nah, not so much against our weak to fighting in a sense right bottom that has Basti, Leaky, Reggie that are weak to fighting, and Carbink, because Carbink normally when facing fighters it has a Rock Throw. Now Rock Throw is a bad move and it's a rock type move, meaning it's resisted by fighters, and fighters do to Carbink's rock typing, they deal neutral damage instead of resisted damage, despite Carbink being a fairy, because rock takes super effective damage, fairy resist, so at the end they cancel each other out. Now again, it's not really a role based meta, it's hard to make an RPS out of it because there are too many sections here, but it gives us a general idea about the roles and how people make teams. But now again, it is just a general idea. Let's go deep diving into making a few teams and go into our main section of the video, which is the top teams that you are probably here to see. Alright, now we have the shielding scenario. Now if you are not familiar with my videos already, basically I make or divide the main parts of the meta or the main Pokemon in the meta into 3 different sections based on how they perform. For example, the no shield heroes perform greatly when shields are down on both sides. Of course, all Pokemon perform better if they have more shields than the opponent, but here we are talking about equal shields, meaning no shield heroes perform well when you and your opponent don't have any shields left. Therefore, they are very good, for example, at grabbing shields. Zap Cannon or Focus Blast from Registeel, for example, threaten the vast majority of the meta. Now, not everyone here have the same reason for being here. For example, Carbink is here because Carbink does not really generate energy well. Okay, so you need like 9 Rock Throws or 18 turns to reach a move, which is a Rock Slide. It's not that threatening, especially coming from a defensive Pokemon like Carbink. So, for example, you will not be grabbing a lot of shields from your opponent to begin with, and most importantly, if your opponent has shields, they can greatly outpace you. Same here in this case applies to Bastiodon, because Bastiodon needs, of course, like 14. No, sorry. You need 7, so you need 21 turns. Smackdown in order to reach a move, which is either Stone Edge or Flamethrowers. They take the same amount. So yeah, if your opponent has shields, they can easily outpace you and they can throw multiple times. So they prefer lower shields and so on. Now, The other section is good at everything. Now this section basically is made of Pokemons that do well if you and your opponent are in the 0 shield scenario, if you and your opponent are in the 1 shield scenario, and if you and your opponent are in the 2 shield scenario. They do well almost always. Now some Pokemons here differ, like maybe for example Azu initially is better when shields are down, but still nonetheless, due to the buff of Bubble, Bubble does enough energy if you are playing against an opponent in the 2 shields, so that one move afterwards, after the 2 shields, can threaten to KO, if not already KO. So this thing made Azu also good in the 2 shield scenario. Before the buff it wasn't. It used to be only good, for example, in the 0 shield scenario it was a no shield hero, because it had similar situation to the others that we mentioned. Now, below it we have the has a role. Now I put these here because when simulating on PvPoke, they did not actually do well in any shielding scenarios. They had a negative negative win rate, basically. Like their wins were, I believe, in most cases lower than the losses. However, the meta is somewhat condensed, a lot more condensed than what we see. So, and they are played somewhat differently. For example, when you have Vigoroth on a safe swap, the most common safe swap in the meta is and probably will always be Lickitung. Now, Lickitung has a ghost type fast move and it heavily relies on it. Vigoroth is a normal type, so it double resists the licks. So basically the licks deal next to no damage, and on top of that Vigoroth has counter, so you are dealing super effective damage with your fast move while taking double resist damage from Lickitung. Vigoroth has play against nearly everything to some extent, so making it a great safe swap, or at least a great Pokemon to have in the back. Deoxys, you play it basically and mostly on the lead, because Psycho Boost is actually a great move, and it has a downside. It debuffs your attack by 2 stages. So what you do is you lead Deoxys, even in neutral scenarios, you play it in an ABB line, where you are gonna swap out even in neutral scenarios to bait out what Pokemon beats your other B in the ABB line. I believe you know what I'm talking about if you have watched my team formation video in the playlist of how to climb. So yeah, in this case, you don't really swap out right away. Instead, you throw a Psycho Boost and you dip out. This really chips a lot if you do that 2-3 times in the game. After the F1, do the same. Much like a Wild Charge, these tactics do play a lot better in action and versus the whole team rather than 1 versus 1, and so on. Anyway, let's move into the final section, which is the shield heroes. Now, these Pokemons are great Pokemons, however, when shields are down, they don't do all that well. Normally we see here the glass cannons and basically the shadow Pokemons and stuff like that. Hakamo, I didn't expect it to be here, and I believe it might be even good at everything. But Brick Break now has a guaranteed chance to debuff, so if you can get shields from your opponent, especially in simulation, with Brick Break after getting or baiting out twice the shields, you will be dealing a tremendous amount of damage with the Dragon Tail. So yeah, it is here for this reason. Some Pokemons like Talonflame can ramp up their attack because Flame Charge actually boosts your attack, so if you can bait the shield out of your opponent and still buff your own attack at the same time, it's pretty great. We have a Charmer. Charmer, of course, will probably never burn the shields, although Wiggly has Icy Wind, which is of course a guaranteed debuffing move for the opponent's attack. Yeah, got the point. Gallade is very spammy. It reaches, for example, Leaf Blade after 4 Psycho Cards consistently. So when you have shields, you will basically burn more shields than your opponent, especially if you are baiting, and landing close combat even in resisted scenarios deals a huge amount of damage. Now, Okay, we finished running a quick look into the shielding scenarios. Now, if you want to make your own team, you can take this graph and build upon it. Now, I will make 2 example teams. In one example, I will take a Pokemon from each of these sections in order to always remind ourselves that how we are planning on distributing our shields. If I put 2 or 3 shield heroes, each one of them will need 2 shields, remember? So if I use 2 shields on one Pokemon, the other 2 will be defenseless and therefore probably useless in most scenarios. So in one example, we will make a team of 3, one of each section, and in another team we will make a team from the full middle section, which is made of 3 Pokemon that are good at everything. One of the most top performing teams I have ever played is Lantern, Lickitung, and Mandibuzz. I made this team in the previous season while I was making an example of making a team of good at everything. Now, let's see. Let's pick... Normally we pick shield heroes as a closer, but in this scenario, let's pick Shadow Poliwrath maybe, and pick it as a lead. We can pick it as a lead. I'm thinking probably with no shield hero. Maybe with Cresselia, because Cresselia can deal with Lantern, and Poly in particular can deal with some of the flyers, like for example Skarmory and Mandibuzz. Now these flyers Cress cannot deal with. Meanwhile, Poly can deal with them, so it will not be a problem. Poly can deal with Bastiodon, with Registeel, stuff that Cress normally don't want to see. So it is okay. And maybe Lickitung. It's again very safe to pick Lickitung. So the team will be Poliwrath, Lickitung, and Cresselia. Now we have a team. It's an ABC line with Lickitung being both a safe swap and the Pokemon that baits out Registeel as well as Bastiodon. Here we basically, because both beat Lickitung, but Lickitung can get them pretty low and in most cases give farm to Poliwrath, because energy from Bastiodon is not threatening to Poliwrath. However, Registeel cannot really farm down all that much energy because they have to throw. In order to take Lickitung out, they need 2 moves basically, and Registeel cannot hold a lot of energy. So even if they reach 100, they barely get out with some energy. So you get the point. Alright, now another team. Let's see. Let's use Trevenant and Azu. Trevenant and Azu basically on paper make a great core. Trevenant is grass, so it deals well with Lantern, that normally Azu don't like seeing. Azu has Ice Beam, so it deals well on paper again with flyers. They don't want to be seen by Trevenant. Trevenant is a ghost type, doesn't want to see dark types. Azu can take care of dark types. Azu don't want to see poison types. Trevenant is a ghost type, so it can take care of poison types. This is on paper, of course. In reality, things are totally different. So yeah, but they do make a great core, and maybe... Okay, let's add Lantern this time. And let's make it an ABB line, in a sense. It makes sense basically to add Lantern to it. I believe I have played this team before actually last season, and it was okay. So yeah, the idea here, you need Ice Beam basically on this. I'll probably make these in the top team, so I'll talk more in depth about them. So yeah, now we have 2 teams. Let's go into the top teams. I said I have 10 top 10 teams. I probably will say that. Top 10 teams, of course 10 teams other than the 2 examples, so they will be 12 in total. But there are timestamps, so feel free to browse as you like, pick and see which one you like the most. You can either hear about the description or wait for it. I will probably play most of these Pokemons because we have 2 weeks kind of Great League back to back, so I will try to play most of the teams I'm gonna feature in order to give you more in-depth tips about how to play them. Now let's move. Alright, I did make simulation for both example teams and they are both actually viable. I mean, everything has core breakers, but they are viable. Now, core breakers. When we say core breakers, there are technically two terms for it. One term is the core breaker by typing. Now, Carbink. Carbink is an electric type. It beats water types. It's a bug type. It beats psychic types. This is a typing core breaker. Now this is very tough because normally this Pokemon can take one of your Pokemons and have enough to technically deal an extended amount of damage for an extended amount of time versus another Pokemon. And the thing with core breakers is they either beat the 3 Pokemons or at least they beat the lead and one in the back. If they beat 2 Pokemons in the back, this is not a core breaker. This is how a team is designed to function. But if it beats the lead and 1 Pokemon in the back, this is a core breaker. Now, another is Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, as a fairy, beats your lead, and as a normal type, it takes basically resisted damage, double resisted damage from Licks, so it beats Lickitung. Now this is again a core breaker. It beats the lead and the safe zone. Even if I swap into my hardest counter for it, like Cresselia, don't do that of course. If I swap into Cresselia, they will swap out, probably. And if they do, then technically you no longer have an answer for Wigglytuff. Now you can play this in many ways. One of them is swap into Lickitung. Even though you are dealing resisted damage, double resisted damage with Lick, you are still dealing neutral damage with Body Slam, and Lickitung is fairly bulky. So hopefully you get it into a very low state. Zard. Zard technically is... Zard is not fully a core breaker. Granted, it beats your lead, and it can or cannot beat your backline, but you are dealing neutral damage to it. This is not a typing core breaker. This is a Pokemon generally that does well versus your team. Maddie. Maddie used to be very neutral versus Lickitung before the Psychic nerf. Now after the Psychic nerf, Maddie no longer use Psychic, at least on PvPoke. They use Dynamic Punch. Now with Dynamic Punch, Lickitung matchup is no longer very scuffed. It actually goes very easily to Medicham because after the counter damage, one Dynamic Punch is more than enough to take out a Lickitung. So in this scenario, it beats your lead and it beats your safe swap. Also, now that it doesn't run Psychic, if it's not running Psychic, meaning you can only deal either neutral or resisted damage to Poliwrath. Meanwhile, counter is actually overpowered, and coming from a Shadow, a stab Pokemon, it will add up on Medicham nonetheless, and both Scald as well as Icy Wind are neutral. So it's not that destructive of a matchup, hard wall matchup, no. Even though Maddie on paper wins against Poly can still put up a fight, so it's not a problem. Toxapex, again, poison resisting counter, and has a neutral but winning matchup versus Lickitung. So on paper, the real core breakers basically are Charjabug and Wigglytuff. Alright, let's move into the next team. Alright, now the example team. Number 2, which is made of the good at everything section only. Core breakers. We have core breakers for this team. Lickitung. Lickitung on paper beats the 3 Pokemons. Technically has access to Power Whip, making it a somewhat of a roll grass. And as you see, the list is basically grass. The grass Pokemons that beat your grass lead, like for example both Obama and Tropius, as well as of course the other grass and flying, Jumpluff, I didn't mention here because same role, they beat it because of typing, because their subtyping ice and flying beats grass, and their grass typing beats the water types. Now Whimsicott beats Trevenant and can beat the other 2 technically, or at least throw super effective damage moves on them. Now the threatening from these 4 is actually Lickitung. Lickitung is a team effort Pokemon. I remember now I did either play this team or a team similar. Both ways, Lickitung is a team effort. Even though one Pokemon will not fully destroy it, the team will. Like for example Trevenant, they are dealing super effective damage with their fast move, however they are dealing double resisted damage with body slam and single resisted with power whip. Meanwhile Trevenant is dealing neutral stab seed bomb, so if you have a bit of energy lead, if you have stuff like that, you can still threaten Lickitung in some matchups. Trevenant is actually overpowered, but no one really uses it. This season not as great as it used to be, but yeah, still great. In this team again you need Ice Beam because you need a move that deals super effective damage to grass, which you are using this team or the Safe Swap or Azu to bait them out. Now if you can land a super effective Ice Beam on something like Tropius, you cannot really fully take it out, but you know, you deal a lot of damage to it. You soften it up, maybe you can afterwards shield and farm down with Trevenant. You'll see how it goes in real life. Now let's move into the actual first team. Alright, team number 1 is a classic and affordable title. You are probably very familiar with this team, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. The core of Whiscash and Skarmory is very efficient. It's a classic one. And your safe swap here is Charjabug. Charjabug plays the role of baiting out Bastiodon, so you can beat it with your lead or bait out or have two Pokemon that can beat grass types, etc. However, want my honest opinion and honest advice, don't play this team. Look, the team is good, but everyone knows about it. Meaning, let's say I have a Bastiodon in the back. You lead with Whiscash in a neutral scenario, maybe even an unneutral scenario, and you swap out to your Charjabug. Now I'm bringing Bastiodon, okay? I'm farming down Charjabug to the max. However, afterwards, when you come back with your Whiscash, I'm not gonna stay there and let you farm me down. Or beat me or whatever. I have energy and I'm gonna save this energy and swap out again, even if I'm technically giving up switch, because I know that Bastiodon has a play, and even if it's low in health it can still beat Skarmory. So in this scenario the team will no longer function the way it's supposed to function, simply because I know the backline. And this is the thing when you play either a famous content creator's team or a famous team that's been there for seasons and seasons like this one. You will be easily anticipated. I once made basically the idiotic mistake of playing different, thinking that I'm creative or something. I used Toxapex as a safe swap for the Whiscash lead, and I used Talonflame as a closer instead of Skarmory. Now, ironically, same applies to both Talonflame as well as Skarmory. I mean, don't get me wrong. This team, I believe I ran it last season, and I didn't hit leaderboard. I don't believe so, but I was very close. I remember like one win away from leaderboard, or hit the same elo but a bit late. I don't recall exactly how it was, but I was basically in leaderboard range because of it. It was very good. But still, so yeah, this team is good, but still, nonetheless, it's very easily anticipatable. Yeah, that's the word. Being a non-native speaker sucks. Alright, let's move into team number 2. Alright, team number 2. This one I'm gonna spend the least amount of time on it, simply because I have a video made this season. Actually, it's called The Best Team in the Great League or something like that, titled something like that. Basically, the thumbnail is a puzzle, if you care about puzzles. It's a lame one, but you know, try to make something special. Anyway, it's my top performing team for last season, and I believe it will be for this season. This is as much as I'm gonna spend time on it. You can see the video and basically get to be familiar with the team. And for people telling me that they either don't have Lickitung or they want different Pokemons, I believe someone was telling me that they don't have Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz will be spawning in the next rocket event. It will be spawning in the wild, so it's a good chance to get a Mandibuzz. And if you don't have a Lickitung, wait until the last team or skip them. Either way, the last team will feature somewhat of a similar team but different in a way. Yeah, wait for it. It works as well. Probably it was the best simulation team I found. Now let's move into the next one. Alright, team number 3. Now this is a team I really want to play. Like, it's a theme team. I love theme teams. This is a triple water team. The thing with water, if you remember my intro earlier, is that they play different roles. So much different to the point that you can actually build a team with all of them. And a very good team actually. It wasn't bad in simulation or anything. Whiscash here plays the role of anti-electric. You have two Pokemons. One is poison subtyping, one is flying subtyping. So they are your grass answers. Here in this team, Toxa is a safe swap. It either can bait out something like Bastiodon or bait out something like Lantern, the main role. Whiscash takes care of those, and you finish up with Pelipper. Quite a way to basically quite similar to my old team, but with Pelipper instead of Talonflame. I was talking about that earlier. Yeah, Core Breakers. Now, water type like Mantine and Jelly beat the entire 3 simply. The Dragon beats I believe both Lead and Belly. Grass has Grass Knot for the lead and beats Toxa now that it uses Future Sight as the recommended move site. So yeah, these are Core Breakers. And Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn simply beats the 3. Has Grass that hits double super effective damage on the lead because of both ground and water subtyping on Whiscash. Toxa, although poison deals super effective damage to grass, it deals double resisted damage to steel, making actually Ferrothorn resist poison moves by 1 stage. Same applies to the other one. Brine is a move, I believe it's a water type, so it is resisted of course by grass. And most Ferrothorns run Thunder, so it deals super effective damage, not neutral, to Toxapex, and it deals double super effective damage versus Pelipper, one-shotting Pelipper easily. So yeah, and Mantine again beats Lead and beats Pelipper. It's basically a better flying and water type. Now, better doesn't always here better in the mirror. I myself prefer Pelipper over Mantine, but yeah. Let's move into the next team. Alright, now team number 4 comes from the one and only Taffystar. Taffystar is a great friend and a greater battler in PvP. She has a video already made about this team. I highly recommend you checking her channel if you don't already. She is really great, and she is basically the one that helped me make this channel from scratch. Like literally, she taught me everything. So I owe a great deal to her. Her team is very good, like really very good, and she explains it better than me, so I'm not gonna try to explain it a lot. I'll simply say some Core Breakers for the team are basically the fighting normal, which is Vigorous. Technically it's not a fighter, but it plays the role because it beats normal lead, and it double resists Shadow Claw from both Pokemons actually, and double resist Shadow Ball. But it's manageable, team effort. Same applies to Scrafty. It's not that you ever see Scrafty anyway. And Mandibuzz technically is tough on the team, but still manageable as well. And Ice Beam hitting for super effective damage. Hydro Cannon, your lead can still put up a work against it. Basically, it only hard walls the middle Pokemon. So yeah, all in all, a great team. Check out her video and see for yourself. Alright, now team 5 is quite circulating in the meta. If you watch my videos already, I explained this team multiple times. It's a great team. It's an AAB team, something I invented, not the actual strategy. I invented the name just so I can have something to mention it by, you know. So yeah, the idea behind this team is you have the core of Whiscash and Skarmory in the back. They complement each other perfectly in terms of typing. And you have your lead. Your lead will use 2 shields if necessary in order to maintain alignment. Regardless of your opponent's Pokemon, your job is to maintain alignment with your lead. Doing so will allow you to basically put the RPS into play or control the RPS in a more specific way. Whiscash, when put versus, for example, Lantern, it will destroy it. Skarmory when put against the grass, it will destroy it. And yeah, this is basically the gist of it. I will be playing this team. Someone asked me before if I can play this team and showcase it in a better way and how to play in each and every scenario. So I will be doing so. Make sure to watch it if you care about the team and you want to try it out. Let's move into the next team. Alright, now this team is very favorable for me. I love this team. I basically made a short video about it. I didn't make a full video about it because simply we only had 1 week of Great League and so many Pokemons and teams to feature. However, this team actually performed tremendously well for me, and I've been trying to do that for so long. Like these 2 Pokemons, I've been trying to use the score, but sadly they don't really match well with anything. And as you can see, basically in the core breakers, basically every grass that has a subtyping that beats them is a core breaker. For example, ice beats the dragons, fairy beats the dragons, flying beats fighters, psychic beats fighters. So yeah, these 4 Pokemons and everything similar to them beats the whole team, but it did perform well. Like really, when I played it, it was awesome. Now let's move into the next team. Alright, now we have a team made by Emma. If you know her from Twitter as Miss Rhycofears, she is a great battler, consistently hits legend, and she is a great person in general. You probably know her if you've been on Twitter. Her team was spicy, lots of spice actually, and I loved the team. However, I'm not so sure if she uses Seed Bomb or Grass Knot. I did put Seed Bomb here because it is the recommended move by PvPoke. But yeah, the team is very simple and very effective. And however, I have to mention, it requires a lot of skills because the team is very squishy. Like the 3 Pokemons technically are squishy, but they do hit pretty hard. Common core breakers we see, for example, Mantine, because as a flying type it beats the lead, and it also resists basically both Hydro Cannon and Ice Beam, which are the recommended moveset by PvPoke. So yeah, it kind of walls Feraligatr in a way. Only Pokemon that can beat it, I believe, is actually I believe it beats the entire team. Not so sure. So counter is resisted by flying, but Rock Slide is super effective damage, depending of course on the matchup and the shielding scenario, but I believe it can beat Vigoroth. So yeah, another Pokemon that is hard for this team is Toxapex. Double super effective damage versus the lead. Actually beats Vigoroth as well and beats Feraligatr. And yeah, the third one actually beats lead and a bit hard versus the safe swap, which is Vigoroth, but still manageable. All in all, the team is great. Check it out, and if you want more tips on it, I highly recommend you guys ask her. She is very friendly and probably will help you out. Alright, team number 8. Now, this team will probably be the most consistent team if you want to use a team. At least one of the best in terms of consistency. Basically, in order to have a core breaker for a team, you need a ghost that resists the moveset from Registeel. So we have here 2 ghost types, Trevenant as well as what's it called? Giratina Origin. These basically beat the entire team, especially now that Crest don't have Moonblast, and your safe swap basically doesn't have a dragon type move or even a neutral type move to hit Trevenant, so it's a very tough. It will still beat Giratina, but it's a bit tough versus Trevenant. Also, Trevenant is very squishy, and 2 Zap Cannon near KO, so yeah. but this team actually performs well, like really well. The idea behind it is simple. Two Pokemon in the back that can deal with ground type and the stuff that beat your lead. Here you use what's it called, Gudra, to bait out Bastiodon because Crest don't want to see it. Same applies to Skarmory because Crest don't want to see some. And that's about it, basically. Very simple team, very efficient. I will probably be using this team as well. Now let's move into the next one. Alright, now another team being featured from a friend on Twitter, Humpaka. Humpaka is a great battler. He recently actually made rank 4, like the 4th player in the world. So yeah, don't take the team lightly at all. He is a great battler and a great person. Make sure to follow him on Twitter and ask him if you want some tips or stuff like that. But he did give me a few tips. Now on paper you'll see this team and think of the core breakers, Bastiodon, Carbink, etc. However, and Azu basically and stuff like that. But the thing is, in the 2-shield scenario, Gudra does fairly well against a lot of them. And A9 lead is very good. It doesn't really have much hard answers to it. Nowadays, fire is very rare, being the meta being water and dragons basically. And you don't really see a lot of these teams. However, what you see is a lot of dragons. And you destroy them. You see a lot of fighters. You destroy them with the lead. So yeah, all in all, a very great team. I highly recommend you use it. And again, take the credit of the player who is using it, basically. So yeah, let's move into the final team now. Alright, whenever I make a team videos, top teams video, I reserve the final team for the teams that basically got 3 A's and a B on PvPoke simulations. This one was B and AAA, back to back. So it really has next to no core breakers. Like I did put here 2 Pokemons as core breakers, but even then like Registeel, granted Registeel can hit for super effective damage with Focus Blast, can land debuffing moves, but in the 2-shield scenario, Vigorous, depending on the buffs and debuffs of course, but Vigorous is dealing super effective damage with a fast move counter nonetheless, and Vigorous is high attack weight and consistently reaches the move very fast, like after 5. So in the 2-shield scenario, for example, your opponent will need like 15 turns basically, you need like 10, so you will be landing a very great move, stab move nonetheless, from a very high attack weighted Pokemon. So we will probably flip it. And Carbink technically also is a core breaker, it beats lead and it beats Mandibuzz. It's not a type disadvantage. So all in all, the team is really great. And if you were looking for a substitute basically, like people who didn't have Lickitung to play the Lantern and Mandibuzz core, now this team functions a bit differently, but still nonetheless same idea. You have Crest to bait out Basti and stuff like that Mandy don't want to see, lead that beats them, but the team doesn't fully function in a for example, Lantern beats Mandy. You cannot bait out Lantern beats Mandy, you cannot bait out Lantern with Cresselia. So this is the thing. So your opponent, if your opponent has a electric type in the back, depends, you can bait out Charjabug because it beats Cresselia, but you cannot bait out Lantern. So maybe your opponent will save Lantern and in this way you'll be in trouble. So yeah, I have to mention this. But other than that, the team is really great. Like I think it will perform greatly. So with that being said, let's move into the conclusion. Alright, the conclusion is basically me telling you to subscribe, like the video, because it really did take a lot of time to make. But for real though guys, if you want any tips regarding any of these teams, feel free to comment and ask about them. And again, we will have technically Great League for 2 weeks. So I will be making videos preferably around teams that I featured in this video in order to both test them out if they haven't been tested already. Like for example, 3 teams were recommendation from players. These were already tested, so no need to test them again. One of them actually is a content creator, so you already have the video for it. But the rest probably I will be testing them in case I didn't already. And again, feel free to ask me about anything. Hope to see you in soon with a new video. Until then guys, take care. Bye bye.